Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the Family Portraits program of the Seattle Asian American Film Festival. The films in this program were Mango Baby, After Images, Hello from Taiwan, Magic Kingdom, ETA, Golden Boy, Herselves, and Harana Serenade. We have some special guests for this Q&A. If you could each introduce yourself, the film that you're representing, and then your role with the film.
Great. Yeah, I could just start. Yeah. Hello, my name is Justin Ricafort. I am the writer, director, producer of ETA. Thanks for having me.
Hi, this is Nelson Ng Chak Hei, and I'm the director, writer, editor, and of Magic Kingdom. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Tiffany Frances, and I am the writer and director of Hello from Taiwan.
And hi, I'm Kitty. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm director and producer of Golden Boy.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so like I said earlier, the program that your films are in is called Family Portraits. If you showed your families the films that you made, what were your family's reactions?
So they actually were one of the last people to see it, at least in my circle. And it's one, it was the expectation was we would be in a theater right now. So there's a lot of like elements working there. But so we got to watch it in our house and got to see the film that I was sort of manifesting from a lot of different stories from my father, from even my relationship with my mother. And so it was kind of like a collective reckoning to see that. And then it was also like the car and ETA is my dad's car who he gave to me. So it was kind of like, oh my God, like that's the car. Like, oh my God, that's my jersey. We use his jersey in the film. And so there were all these moments that were a lot more concentrated, especially in pandemic time, because I got to be there with them and hear them instead of, just hearing the shushing of other audience members, which we probably do still want, but we got something else instead. At least I got something else instead out of that. Just a culmination of a lot of projects. ETA is definitely like my biggest, most film-like. So it was really gratifying.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I guess Magic Kingdom wasn't really deeply personal to or a reflection of my life. It was based on actually a friend's story. So when my parents saw it, they thought it was a really cool story, but they weren't really like, oh, they didn't have the same reaction, I guess, to how Justin's parents reacted. But they were happy that I was actually doing something more of a passion project and trying to figure out myself in this sphere of narrative filmmaking, I guess. So they were happy with that. So quite supportive and they liked it. So I was happy for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good.
Yeah.
So for Hello from Taiwan, it's so funny because Justin, I feel your pain on theater thing because I was worked really hard to make it a theatrical release and had the whole 5:1 sound mix and all that stuff. Anyways, my family was actually really involved with the film from the beginning, from like when I was crowdfunding, and it's just funny because it is a really personal story and it was reflective of like something that happened to me when I was younger. Like my parents really did get divorced and my dad took my two older sisters with him to Taiwan and then brought them back after a year and tried to make things work with my mom, and they did actually. But so I actually grew up with the whole family intact. So this is like the story is sort of based on like one of my earliest childhood memories. So that's why I kind of processed that meeting at the airport and all that stuff. So it was kind of funny because as they're involved with it, they're like, Daisy doesn't have to be that mean to Christy or whatever like that. Or like my mom was kind of just like, I think she kind of thought the kidnapping scene was really harsh. That never actually happened in my life. My dad actually had passed a few years ago, but he was always a really good dad. So I don't want to portray anyone in my family like the wrong way. I was always telling them like throughout the whole process, this isn't about you guys. It's, trust me, it's not about you. It's just about that one scene, you know, and that's where the story evolved from there. So they were just always really, it was just really funny, but they were really supportive throughout the whole process, helping me, you know, get donors and all that stuff. Everyone's really pretty involved with the Taiwanese American community, so that was really interesting and really wonderful to kind of have both my family and the community kind of come together in that sense. And then in my family, you know, now on all the Zoom calls with the family on Christmas or New Year's or whatever, they're like, I can't wait to see your film, Tiffany. Like my family members, you know, everyone who's sort of supported the film. So I think it's been like a family affair, to be honest.
That's awesome to hear about. My doc was obviously about my family, so I wanted to show them first to just honor that. And my dad, I think, had a good time. Like he would laugh periodically while watching himself, and I think it's different when you see yourself on camera. And he was very much someone who just thought he was one way, and then seeing himself through a film was like, oh, that came out kind of harsh, even though it came out really lightly in my head. And I was like, yeah, that's the point of making this film, so you can see that. And my mom, ironically, was like, she still has like memory problems, so she doesn't really you don't really know necessarily what she knows at that moment or what she remembers. But watching the film, it was kind of funny because I interrupted her watching a Chinese soap opera, and then after the film she was like, oh, can we go back to the soap opera? So it was just like, it's still like a light and fun moment for me to remember the time they first saw it.
Wow. That's so funny that your dad was like, oh, that, I didn't mean it like that. Wow. Okay. So, Justin, I have an individual question for you. So the argument between the father and the son in your film basically resolves without actually resolving. The son goes like, hey, you're tired, I'll drive, instead of the two actually talking through their conflict. And these kinds of indirect apologies seem to be really common amongst parents and their kids. So when writing the script, did you think about exploring what it would be like if they actually did talk through their feelings?
Absolutely. So it's funny because ETA is a 5-minute short film, and I tell this story about like, okay, I'm just gonna put silence in, and then people will get it. People will get what it's like when your parent like just shoots you a gaze, and then you know exactly what that means. But I needed to be able to externalize it in a way that the team got it, and we were able to reproduce something like that. And so it was kind of a balancing act of, okay, I have to remember like how can I make the story serve my intentions first and my reality first. And though the father is very similar to my own father, it's also a collective body of a lot of my different Asian American, Filipino American friends, conversations with their own parents. And so when it got to the moment, which is like the climax of the film, where um, do we say we're sorry? I was like, well, we need to feel the sorry, but we don't need to necessarily say it. We need to start them off on that journey because um, there's so many there's so many reasons that I think, in my experience being an Asian American, Filipino American, where silence had to be the answer because it was self-preservation. And even though that the moment that we have in ETA is pretty small, um, you feel the effects, that the intention is to feel the effects of what the relationship was before and compare that to where we could imagine they can go. So them not saying sorry now kind of sets up, a conversation later for them to be able to approach it in a more mature way, in a way that they both mature simultaneously. So even though it's not said, um, I would like to implant it in people that it could happen. Like it's closer to happening now more than ever because of what took place, and even what wasn't said.
Ugh, I felt that. I felt that in your film. Maybe it's because I'm Filipino myself. I don't know. But I was like, I feel like that's the future.
Yeah, it's a good one. So we should go for it.
Yes, yeah. All right, now Nelson,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about how much your
Mhm.
like how much the stories came from people you'd been around growing up, or if you actually had to like actively research it. But since you said
Yep.
it came from your family, I can, or not your family, your friend, I can ask another question.
I can delve into that and talk about how that this story came to be and where we got the idea from. Well, it's initially the idea came from a friend who immigrated to the U.S. in a similar fashion, and she met up with a lot of people coming from like Taiwan and Hong Kong that also came to America through like system of adoption through, I mean, immigration through adoption. And we found a common theme in a lot of their stories is that their parents told them that they were going to go to Disneyland instead. And when they came to the US, they finally popped the question like, why don't you, do you want to like stay behind and start a new life here? And we kind of took that as some sort of, we found the idea of Disneyland kind of interesting because it's almost like a symbol to what an American dream could be. So it can be like a fantasy for a lot of immigrant families that couldn't achieve that status of American dream. And we wanted to do a story using that symbol and thought it was quite an interesting way to tie it in to the whole idea of the American dream.
Oh yeah, definitely. Ugh, I love the cinematography in your film as well.
Yeah.
Just as
Uh,
a note. Okay, so Tiffany, um, your film is basically told through the eyes of your character as a child, and there's this motif of cracking. So she sees things cracking everywhere. As children, did you and your sisters really see or feel that cracking in your family dynamics? Because I know you've said how you're kind of just now fully processing what happened back then. Or did you put that cracking motif in as like more of a symbol for the audience?
That's a good. That's a really good question. I don't know if I really felt that throughout between me and my siblings. Like, I mean, I think in general, I've always sort of been the black sheep, anyways. So like that, I don't know. Maybe part of that has to do with the fact that I am the youngest child, and then they went through this experience without me, and I had a separate experience from them. But consciously, I'm not sure if I felt that, and I think that's why I wanted to use the cracks as a symbol to like to show how someone can feel inside, like unconsciously, like in her imagination, and it's like it's not super visible to anyone else but her, and just sort of lying underneath the surface, just like a feeling of like what she's going through, and like kind of seeing that the foundation of her own family is like not really intact, because yeah. And actually I did go through the San Francisco earthquake with my mom. I remember that happening, so I kind of took that memory and kind of just tried to show at first, like, the mom and the daughter go through something together, and then that's why she's so attached to her mom. But then eventually I kind of was like, oh, there's actually a lot of moments where I know I can use this more figuratively. And so that's how I kind of started writing it back in different places. And then actually my DP helped me visualize some of that stuff too, because he was like, I really feel like we need a specific moment here, and like, so that was part of the whole process of like, inception to actually getting it into different places of the story.
Yeah, it definitely added to the tension when you were well, your character was in the car. I was like, oh my gosh. And again, to the audience, if this makes it in the edit, um, the dad did not actually kidnap his child. Great dad.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then for Kitty, you've spoken elsewhere about how this documentary is also a way of mobilizing people to change the healthcare system. Do you want to talk more about that, or maybe share a message for people going through similar experiences?
Yeah, I would love to. Because I think a lot of us recognize that our healthcare system is just messed up and broken in many ways. But I think oftentimes we don't feel mobilized to do anything about it until something happens to a family member or to a loved one. And by then it's too late to do something because you're literally dealing with sometimes like a life or death situation or just a ton of bills coming at you from every direction. Because a lot of the ways in which the system is created through if you have insurance or if you don't have insurance, which is a whole another conversation, with hospitals and the actual healthcare aspect, and then with the patient and the patient's family themselves. Like ultimately, what I've seen and witnessed is just a lot of the burden of dealing with the payment and dealing with the back and forth ultimately ends up on the patient's shoulders. And when they're dealing with the actual health crisis, they don't have the capacity, to really fight these systems. And so ultimately they're caught up either paying if they can afford it, or I've listened to other stories from folks who it gets to the point where their credit gets involved. And then it's even beyond that, like housing and all of those things get involved. And so it's this whole system that is really predatory in many ways and profits off of people who are struggling and who, and especially in a case like for my mom and for a lot of us, like there's nothing that we could have done to prevent this. Like you wouldn't have known that this would have happened unless you somehow happened to do like a brain scan, which you would only do if you got into like a car accident and maybe your head was hit in some way. So for a lot of folks, our healthcare system is just not preventative, and it's very much trying to fix issues after they happen. And so I kind of hope that more folks can start learning about that aspect of the system and thinking about the little ways in which they can push in whatever capacity.
Ooh, your audio cut out. I'm so sorry. I can't hear you now.
Can you hear
Yes.
me now? Okay.
Because you were talking about like people thinking about the ways that they can push the healthcare system.
Yes. Is my audio good?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. I was just saying, I hope that it mobilizes people to think about the different ways in which they can push the healthcare system in the capacity or fields or areas that they have, because it's something that really affects all of us. And whether it's something that affects you when you actually just get older and need to go to the hospital for other things, or if unfortunately like a crisis happens, it's something that will just touch us all. And that if we had free healthcare for everyone, that's actually with quality and preventative and with holistic care in mind, then it would just completely change how we're able to live and move about.
Absolutely. Yes. Healthcare is a human right. I don't know how many times we need to say this to people to get them to understand, but yeah, very predatory system. I'm glad to hear it sounds like your mom is doing better, at least now.
Yeah. Is it frozen for you all? Because
Yeah.
it's okay. Oh,
Oh, not anymore. It was kind
okay.
of fun.
Sorry. Maybe I can try hotspotting myself. But yeah, my mom is doing a lot better right now. She's starting to go through PT, but it's still a situation where you just kind of don't know what recovery will look like or if this is recovery. And so we're kind of just going with it.
Yeah, I actually am just like happy that things seem to be looking better. And I hope that it is recovery that's like happening for your mom and for your family. I have one last question, but it might like push up against time. Well, I had two questions. So one was either to plug any social media or if you have projects in this pandemic projects, or to talk about like a special memory or favorite memory from production. So if you have a preference.
Oh yeah, sure. Let me help out with the time. I'll say just like kind of the send off for ETA, especially in this time. We wrapped the film a year ago, and so I don't think we could have imagined the state of the world we'd be in. And we sort of also imagined that it would be better off. But I think now is the time for like filmmakers to really consider the ways in which they can present themselves more radically against the system. Like if there's any call to action I have, it's for actual like contemporary filmmakers, my contemporaries, folks here, folks watching who are aspiring to like learn different things and be in different fields. Like a lot of your existence is actually resistance itself. And we do a lot of unheard, unspoken, silent work behind the scenes in a way that's not just simply representative, but one that is deeply political. And so I think folks being able to be present in spaces, whether you're watching this in the moment you're watching this, or someone tells you about like something to go and support, like there's so many grassroots efforts that are working parallel and adjacent and to each other that all speak to the same thing. I think that Kitty brought it up pretty well. It's like there's a need for you, like you have purpose and like being able to fight for a good cause wants you and your skill set, whether you're an artist or have a STEM oriented thing, or you're just like skirting the lines or anything like that. Because I was definitely a person like that where I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. And we were able to accomplish the small type of work we did in our universe. And it was extremely motivating and it filled up my cup. Like you can't pour from an empty cup. So taking care of our communities is work as well. Things to plug. Uh, well, okay. I really advocate for housing justice in our own community, where folks need to have accessible, safe, affordable places to live. And so if you are a tenant or a renter and you don't know your rights, look up your local tenants union. I promise you there are folks who are housing insecure that are learning and educating on the ground and supporting each other through mutual aid, wherever you may be, and whether you're in a stressful position or not. It's always good to know that there are folks who are wanting a more safer world for folks to be able to stay, and for folks who, you know, might have, like, God forbid, things happen to them, need to have that sort of support system in that community that supports them emotionally and physically. So there's my, I would like love for you folks to look up your tenants unions. So that's it. Sorry.
Oh, please. Yes. Thank you. Excellent resource to be shared.
Yeah, thank you for that, Justin. That was a really positive message that you have there. Yeah, I'll start off with just memorable moments, I guess, in making Magic Kingdom. I feel like it was always in the pre-production phase when you actually see the bits and parts that begin to come up and form what you've imagined this whole time you've been writing. And I think the biggest one for me was the casting process when we found Travis, who plays the little boy in Magic Kingdom. We were very worried at first, and because we had to cast someone locally in LA that could speak Cantonese and also act. And we were worried that we wouldn't be able to find someone like that. And Travis came along, and when we first met him and when we had a conversation with him, yeah, it just fit the bill, and all our relief were just like gone at that moment. And thank God that we found someone like him. So that was a pretty memorable moment. As for plugs, I guess, yeah, I just want everyone to keep hanging on during this tough times and be able to like sort themselves through this time, and find something that they can do in the meanwhile, and be able to like hold themselves together without, you know, succumbing to all this pressure right now. I'm in a different scenario right now. I'm in Hong Kong. I'm based in Hong Kong right now, so there's a different set of factors that I guess everyone's experiencing different things in different places, and I hope you guys hold on tight and remain positive. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone's so philosophical, and I'm like, I have nothing. You guys are so great, and I love that. I'm in LA right now, where it's like the lockdown is pretty strict right now, but the vaccine distribution is really good. So I do feel really hopeful in that regard, and I hope that it starts really happening everywhere else as well, so that everyone can start feeling that seed of hope that like things will turn a corner soon. Anyway, I guess like some of my favorite moments from the film, I feel like there are so many. There are just so many beautiful moments, because everyone, I feel like, in terms of just all these different walks of life, like, you know, a couple of my producers were from China, and another producer is from, oh gosh, I'm forgetting exactly where she's from, but she's like European, Eastern European, and she's Moldovan. She's from Moldova, and then there's just like a bunch of other different characters that were on set, like had kids that were really young, and I had like Janet Shea, who's from like Taiwan, and she's like really well known there. And then Barney Chang, who's like a director also, who plays a dad. And like, so I just had like a bunch of people from like all different walks of life. My DP was really great. He's, you know, just like a white guy that went to AFI back in the day. And so I think like there was just a lot of different types of characters, and I think it was really beautiful to make something really different with all of them together, and everyone just kind of got along throughout the whole process. It was kind of like a family in itself. So I think that was like the most beautiful thing, was just seeing that everyone really got along and like cared about the project and worked really hard to make everything happen together, you know, and just, it's just so funny to throw a bunch of weird people in one room and then like make it all happen. And I feel like during prep, we had a lot of meetings, like for a lot of our pre-production meetings, we ended up having a lot of location scouts and a lot of just like prep meetings. And for some reason, we always like sat on the floor. Like everyone just like sat on the floor, like whether it was like a parking lot that we ended up just like holding some impromptu meeting, or like, or if we gathered at someone's apartment back in the day when you could do that, like everyone was like sitting on the floor, or just, I don't know, I just somehow something about the floor dwelling situation just made everything feel like really down to earth. Like we weren't on this huge movie set. It was just like it felt very like organic in that sense.
And I think I'm gonna echo Justin's calls for housing access and rights, but also to really localize efforts, and just because I see film really as a vehicle for social change and movement building, no matter what kind of story it is. And so I hope folks realize that they can plug in locally, and that there are local activists and organizers in every space or sphere, even if you feel like there aren't, but that those people exist. And also echoing Nelson's call for just hoping that people are okay, because I think we just haven't had time to rest or to grieve or to heal and all of that. So I hope, like, mental health is healthcare and is holistic health. So I hope that people get the chance that they need and take all the space and time and whatnot and just be okay.
Thank you again to Tiffany, Nelson, Kitty, and Justin, as well as you, the audience, for joining the 9th Seattle Asian American Film Festival. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to fill out our festival participant survey. There should be a link in your confirmation email. Data from the surveys helps us get grants and sponsorships that make this festival possible, and it's another way that you can support SAAFF. Also, check out our programs at seattleaaff.org. Tickets are still available. On behalf of the Seattle Asian American Film Festival, thank you and stay safe.